Today in our gospel, we meet a Jesus that we're not really used to seeing. So we're used to seeing a Jesus who performs many miracles. And last week he healed the woman with the hemorrhage, and then he went along to heal the daughter of Jairus. And today he's back in his hometown and he does nothing. The gospel is very specific in saying that he's only able to do a few small things, but other than that, because of the lack of the faith of the people of his hometown, he's not able to perform these big, giant miracles that we're used to seeing him perform. And what's amazing in that is that it's always amazing when God performs miracles in our life, but it is equally equally amazing when he doesn't, right? And those things that God takes away from us, right, when he doesn't perform those miracles, we can become frustrated and wondering what he's doing, right? But the importance there is that God is glorified when he chooses to heal. And the question for us today is, do we believe that he is also glorified when he chooses not to? Right, we all have those things in our life. I remember going through seminary for 7 years. Those things in my life, the temptations and the attachments, right, where I thought to myself, now if only the Lord were to take this away from me, then I could follow him more readily. Then everything would be fixed and I could just work my way towards the priesthood without no barriers, and everything would be perfect. But certainly that's not the God that we believe in. That's not the God we profess to be true. And this is something that St. Paul in our second reading very much understood at a very, very deep level. He speaks today of the thorn in his side, right? This thing that just doesn't seem to go away. Right? And he's very specific in saying that three times he begged the Lord to remove this thing from him. And we don't quite know what that is. He never says it explicitly, but many scholars believe that it may have been something along the lines of speech. Right? He wasn't a very good public speaker. He mentions this a few times throughout the course of his letters. So there is speculation that he may have been speaking of something along the lines of his speech. But the importance is he's not talking about these temptations and these attachments that they just come and go throughout the day. He's talking about long-term things, right, that we continue to bring to the Lord, that we continue to ask for healing, and he just continues to allow it to persist in our life. And this is certainly not something that is new. We see this throughout history and even some of our most powerful figures. And I remember when I was growing up, one of my favorite people to look up to was President Lincoln. And so my parents even took my brother and I down to Springfield to go to the museum down there just to learn more about his life and the way that he lived his presidency. And I even they gave me for Christmas one year this giant picture that had a bunch of his quotes on it. But he struggled throughout most of his adult life with severe depression. So he lost 3 of his 4 sons before they turned 16 years old. And his wife, it was much more prominent with his wife, just suffering from this severe, severe depression. And in some of his letters, you can see that he is just wondering, when will this crutch pass? When will this storm finally come to an end, as he was battling within the Civil War? And it just seemed like throughout the course of his life, this manic depression just seemed to weigh upon him. So we all have those things in our life, right, that we continue to bring to the Lord, right, those thorns that we just wish that if they would be taken away, then we could finally live the Christian life with more zeal. And so the question that arises from that is, well, why? Why is that the case? Right? Jesus is in his hometown today and he chooses not to perform miracles. St. Paul is talking about this thorn and the Lord just doesn't seem to be listening to him. So why is that the case? Why does God choose not to come into our lives and to more readily come to the aid of our prayers when he has the power to do so? And there are many reasons why, but just a few. One is to keep us upon our knees, right? The Lord knows that when we are not fully dependent on him, then pride can start to creep in. Where if he were to heal this thing in our life that we know is an attachment, that we know is a temptation for us, would we continue to more readily turn to him when we need him the most? And I think more often than not, right, the answer to that question, at least for me, would be no, right? If he were to suddenly heal this thing, then I wouldn't more readily turn to him. So keeping us upon our knees, keeping us to be a student of prayer, right, is always in the forefront on the mind of the Lord. But the most important reason, right, which Paul certainly hints at in the second reading, is that Christ bore those thorns first, right? Yes, in a very literal sense upon the cross where he was literally wearing the crown of thorns. But there is this truth within the church, right, that Paul speaks about, to where strength is born within the weaknesses that we have. And by the wounds of Christ, we are healed. That even the deepest pains that we have, the burdens that we carry, Christ has glorified those. Right? He's glorified the darkest parts just as much as he's glorified within the miracles that he performs. Right? And through every part of our human activity, that has been redeemed. Right? The most joyous moments and the most painful of moments. So as we approach the altar today, right, we give thanks for the most joyous moments in our life where the Lord is always there. But at the same time, we give thanks for our weaknesses, because it is through those, and most importantly through the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, that we are made whole and that we are healed.